Ladies, gentlemen, and haradrim of all ages, Season 2 has so far been very eventful up to this point as far as news from the community, patches, hotfixes, tweets from the developers, data mining, leaks, BlizzCon coming up this weekend. There's just a lot happening, so let's just take a few minutes to break down what's been going on the last couple of days within the game and how, like it often does, it can have a noticeable effect on your time playing the game from here on out. Starting off then, yesterday saw the official release of patch 1.2.1, which we got the patch notes for ahead of time last week, and we've already talked about those on the channel. But now that it has actually been applied to the server, what are the main things going on? Well, there are three big main things here. The first is the training dummy. This is a whole new area that has been added to QoL that can be accessed in the training grounds section through this dungeon marker. Head here to enter a cellar where you'll have a stash and an altar to interact with. Interacting with the altar gives you some options. You can either fight a single enemy or a group of enemies, and you can make those enemies count as mook mobs, elites, or as bosses, depending on what you want to actually be testing. This is invaluable for anyone who wants to fine-tune their build, maybe check one skill against another, one piece of gear against another. It just gives us a place to actually have consistency when using our abilities and to use that to make informed choices when changing our gear or creating new builds rather than having to just sort of theory craft and then throw yourself into a dungeon of ever-changing foes. I'm a really big fan of the training dummy personally. I wish it was here since day one, and while I think it is very good to have now, I think we'll see a lot more use in the future if we gain something like build loadout slots. This is the only way that I see to truly incentivize the vast majority of people to make a number of different builds, and making builds is where this training dummy will shine, giving you a place to see how things properly work in action. That said, the training dummy doesn't work properly, at least not quite. As it turns out, of course, this has released in a bit of a buggy state, and it seems to not have any interaction with either Necromancer minions or Druid companions, and I assume they just didn't flick the switch in the code required to make companion AI view the training dummies as enemies, which to me shows a different problem entirely. We should just have some method of directing our companions or minions to attack, whether it be Druid or Necro, it doesn't matter. There should just be some bonus little control for companion classes to say, hey, minions, this is the guy that I want dead, go kill him. And that always should have been a thing, and I feel like this incident really emphasizes why it is weird that it isn't. That said, moving on from that, we also got the addition of a brand new refund all button on your Paragon board. This doesn't make it any cheaper, it doesn't save different configurations for you or anything like that, but it at least means that if you are going to be level 100 and want to try out another build, you don't have to right-click your Paragon board 225 frickin' times. I still can't believe they made us do that before, but it really just shows how they never truly expected people to try more than one build per character, or at the very least, they never thought about what that would mean at a particularly high level. But now it's here, and I'm glad that it's here, but it absolutely is just a stepping stone on the way to build loadouts. If we had build loadouts, this button would be nearly pointless, and in comparison to build loadouts, this isn't that much, but it is far, far better than manually having to reset your Paragon board, so I will definitely take it. Aside from that, the other biggest part of this patch is that from this moment forward, Uber Uniques as item types will always drop with their fully maxed out potential roll, meaning there's no longer any such thing as a subpar Shaco, they just always are what they are, maxed out. For example, here is my Uber Unique, a Havarion. Notice my shrine buff duration is 10 to 20 seconds, and I rolled 17 on it. If you get one that drops after this patch, it will only drop as 20, no variance, just always the top roll. This is awesome for people who are going out of their way to get an Uber Unique, trying to farm one, or honestly just everyone in case you happen to get one. These items are hard enough to get as they are, hard enough to force into dropping, that if it does happen that you get a bad roll somehow on it, it'll just sort of feels like you hit a reverse jackpot, spending all of your luck on something you aren't even happy to see, something you're not even going to use. So I'm very glad that they changed this to make it just always feel like at least a bit of a rush of ecstasy if an Uber Unique drops. Of course, it will vary depending on which one you get. As far as the developers themselves though, and their love of tweeting about the game, it has been a relatively light couple of days, except for that last confirmation about minions and companions not working properly with the training dummy, and how that will be fixed in the next patch. But we do have a few things to go over here, including the blood drive that Diablo 4 has been participating in, which will reward all players of the game with free cosmetics depending on how much blood is given within the time, and of course claimed within the United States. Currently we are at 66% of the goal, which means that when the event is over, the entire community will now be getting the weapon set, as well as the armor set for free, with the only thing not yet unlocked being the horse. We still have until the 22nd of this month to reach that goal though, so it seems quite likely to me that we'll all be sharing in this load of goodies together, including the horse, so look forward to that if these are anything that you care for. Outside of that, we have another sort of contest type thing that is happening now, but much more suddenly and more particular. This is Sarah Michelle Gellar, best known for her role as Buffy the Vampire Slayer, which is an excellent show by the way, definitely worth a watch if you somehow have never heard of it. And of course, this is just Blizzard paying for another cameo from a celebrity for a little fun event. And of course, this is Buffy the Vampire Slayer hosting the vampire slaying event in the season of vampires. And for this event, they want players to take video clips 10 seconds or longer showing or explaining why they would make a good vampire hunter, throw it up on social media, and 3 people will be picked by the sponsor, and apparently with input from Buffy herself, for which they will get a signed letter, 500 US worth of Blizzard balance, and also a box with vampire hunting props. Personally, as someone who loves funny little props, I just want the box of props. The rest of it is cool, I guess, but my brain lights up at the thought of just a box of funny little vampire props. Anyways, I just thought it would mention that this is a thing for people who would want to take part in it, and I dove into the very legal-looking document to find the important part as far as how to enter and what you get if you win, which I've got on screen if you're actually any interested. Past that, we have one final bit of promotional material that was released around this time, and it's this. I don't even really know what to call this. This actor does a great job reading the material and making it feel alive, don't get me wrong, but it's basically just a spooky vampire story about Sanctuary that flashes up the cutscene that we've already seen from Season 2. It's neat, but it's just sort of strange to me. It feels like they are putting a lot of marketing out right now for Season 2, not for something in the future, for Season 2, which has already started. I guess Halloween timing and everything, they wanted to do some stuff for it, sort of line it up, but it just seems a little bit odd to me personally with the specific time that it's happening. And that covers all the official stuff, but there has been some recent rumblings in the community worth having a chat about as well, which specifically is a growing resentment towards Helltide as a mechanic as a whole. This event was okay before Season 2, you needed to do it sometimes for materials, but it wasn't crazy required, and it was just sort of something to throw yourself at occasionally. In Season 2 though, we have Blood Harvest, which is pretty much just inarguably the exact same concept as Helltide, but executed significantly better. The monster density in Blood Harvest is awesome, the extra bonus objectives and things like the altars, the chests, all that stuff, really fun to interact with, and they value your time by giving you things worth interacting with in the first place. And in my mind, probably the most important part of this, Blood Harvest is always active. It runs on a timer, sure, but it never really ends so much as it just moves. You don't lose anything. This way, if you sit down and think, I could really go for some Blood Harvest right now, I'd love to farm some, you can do it. No questions asked, no waiting, you can just go out and do it. With Helltide, even though they increase the mob density from how it was in the base game, it is still a lot lower than Blood Harvest. The rewards feel less and less rewarding the more that we go, because we are just at the point where a mystery chest costs 275 cinders for about the same reward. It's just going around for 5 minutes in Blood Harvest. It doesn't feel good. Combine that with doing proper endgame stuff requiring you to do Helltide anyways, because there is now a 300 cost chest with a boss summoning material, and players who actually want to get properly suited and kitted up for endgame, anyone who wants to farm uber uniques a little bit, they don't really have any choice but to do Helltide and to exclusively target the 300 cost chest, which is a fair bit of investment. On average, you can get 4 of these chests in an hour of Helltide, but it depends on respawn timers and such too, of course. 4 of those chests is 2 summons of Gregoire. 2 summons of Gregoire is enough shards for 1 summon of Duriel, not even counting the Varshan eggs part. That means on average, if you farm the entirety of a single Helltide, that is worth 1 Duriel spawn, and that is just not a very rewarding feeling rate. It's so terrible. Combine that with the fact that Helltide is actually inactive more often than it is active, being up for 60 minutes out of every 135 minutes, and it becomes a very clear problem. If somebody wants to farm Duriel, if they want to sit down and say, today my goal is to farm Duriel, I don't want to do anything else, that doesn't work, because not only do they have to interact with Helltide, which people are hyper aware is just not enjoyable all that much compared to Blood Harvest, they have to do it on set timers. They have to take long breaks they probably didn't want to take in the middle, and it's just the time investment to the amount of reward gained is not great in the slightest. Helltide needs fixing, ideally for Season 3 coming up sooner rather than later. Honestly, especially because Season 3 will be removing Blood Harvest. Just transfer some of the mechanics over from Blood Harvest. Use what you learned to make Blood Harvest good and move it over to Helltide to make that feel good, as that's a mechanic that will stay in the game for the rest of its lifetime, probably. That's my suggestion, that's my hope, and I know a lot of people out there are, like me, just starting to get really sort of fed up and frustrated with Helltide and the new boss system, and especially with Blood Harvest sitting over there just looking at us to compare it to and being so much better. And that just about does it for today then, everyone. All the news going on the last couple of days with Diablo 4 and the arrival of patch 1.2.1. BlizzCon kicks off in a couple of days, and we will near definitely have some sort of Diablo 4 news announcements going on within that. I'll do my predictions of what I expect to see in another day or two before the event, and then of course we will do a roundup after the opening ceremony if anything particularly noteworthy happens, which I think might well be the case for us as the Diablo players. I hope you've enjoyed this breakdown of the news then, and I hope you continue to enjoy your time with this game too. Like if you liked the video, subscribe with the notification bell for more, and most importantly, ladies and gentlemen, until next time, stay sweet. Josh, Cotton, and Hollow with the videos, dropping the humor like a hammer on your tippy toes, bringing entertainment on a daily arrangement to take our insanity and turn it into entertainment. Yes, I said entertainment twice, to reiterate that it is nice to look into your faces on a mostly daily basis when you let us in your homes to make the whole world a stage. Goodbye.